Next item, please.
Special reports, summer programs, Ms. Shannon Peterson.
Good evening, Dr. Maleko, President Thorpe, and trustees. I'm about to share the screen. This was a joint effort with our executive directors. Dr. Chokol, Ms. Faraj, and Mr. Asali. This really is a planning document. We don't have everything finalized. We are really working to provide a variety of opportunities for our students this summer, given the fact that we are hopefully about to return in person a year after we left. Our connection to the strategic plan is obviously to improve graduation rates, growth and proficiency of students, positive student relationships, communication, and parent involvement in the district. So elementary planning is beginning. We are looking at providing some summer programming that includes both intramurals, recreation, as well as enrichment, academic enrichment that includes cross-curricular and engaging learning environments and learning opportunities for students. And then hopefully an early start in August for students that we have identified as struggling so that they can hit the ground running when everybody comes back to school on the first day. And then we always offer a jump start for our kindergartners to ease them into their first days at school. Middle school planning, we always have course recovery summer school for students that have failed 2 or more classes. So that is something that we do. It's an overall secondary summer school, but the middle school and the high school programs are located in the same place typically, but they run on slightly different schedules. And this is to afford students who failed a course to make up that learning and be prepared for the next grade. The dates for the middle school are slated for the June 23rd to July 16th, but we're also looking at intramurals, some recreational activities for students since the students have been isolated in their homes and we know that they all want to get back to school and see their friends. So we want to be able to provide as many opportunities this summer that we possibly can to just get back to some sense of normalcy for our students. And then the buildings will be providing academic summer school. And for many years, our middle school students have had summer learning expectations so that we keep them reading and doing some math during the summer to mitigate that summer learning loss. High school consistently has credit recovery summer school. We offer what we call ASAP, is the slang in the high school, but credit recovery both fall, winter, after school, and then in the summer to help students who have failed a course catch up in some credits so that they can graduate on time. And that is planned for June 28th to July 30th. It'll probably be some online and some in person. So we'll probably have a hybrid for that. The way that we've changed this during the last year is typically a student can take 2 classes during this time. But if a student actually finishes the online because they really spend the time on the virtual learning program, then we will afford them to take an additional course if they can complete it in time. We always have a kind of a 9th grade link crew early start where we get the 9th graders into the high school so that they can see what the school layout is, kind of learn the rules before all those big upperclassmen come in. So to help them transition, similar to what we do for our younger students. And then we are also hoping to provide some intramural sports recreation activities for the students that may not be involved in sports teams, or even some of our athletes will probably want to join this as well, but to just provide more opportunities for our students. And then special populations is planning a 5-week summer school. We have always had programs for our special populations. There's going to be a little more collaboration this year with our English learner program and students with IEPs. And then we also have programs for our low incidence population. And we're looking at lengthening the time of those this year so that we can provide more learning time for them. We are having the buildings develop specific plans to meet their needs, and they can submit those to us. And hopefully with additional federal funds, we can provide more than what they have already planned using their title funds. So hopefully with all of these opportunities, we can get students in school and engaged in learning more during the summer than we have in the past since we've been virtual for so long. Any questions?
Trustee Petlicoff.
Yeah, we know this summer is going to be a little bit more problematic potentially, but also many more needs of for our students. And we've also heard from the state that they are having conversation about extending the school year. So these plans might have to shift and change if they're going to add on to our regular school year, I'm going to assume. I'm also going to assume we're going to have a lot more interest by parents to get their students involved, either because they were falling behind or they just need that social interaction once again. Are we prepared to manage an increase in requests to have students? Because usually those numbers are fairly small, where they're generally the same amount every year kind of thing. This year, I have a feeling we're going to be seeing a whole different dynamic.
Yeah, I mean, we are really in the planning phases, and till the principals meet with their teachers and their parents to see who's willing and who actually wants to spend the time in the summer, as well as staff. We don't know what the need is going to be, but we are planning for greater need this year and greater opportunities for our students in the hopes of really setting them up for a more normal and successful school year next year.
Do we have staff buy-in though for extending? Because they've been just, I don't even know how they've managed to maintain the schedules that they've maintained. And I'm not sure how many volunteers we're going to get.
Yeah, I mean, we're working on that. We don't have numbers right now and we're planning. So the building principals really will be working with their staff to see who's willing, who's interested. And then for our district programs, we do some heavy recruitment for that.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for Ms. Peterson? Trustee Watts.
Well, I know with today, Governor Whitmer allowed the contact sports to resume for indoors. Can we talk more about or what has already been put in place for the arts? And I know in the summertime there was on there the intramural sports. Are we going to have that available also for the arts?
So we're going to work on intramurals and enrichment. So for me, enrichment is, if we have band directors that want to pull something together and we can support it, absolutely. Art, we really, for elementary, want it to be more cross-curricular for the enrichment time so that they're having opportunities to maybe science experiments, art, music. And then in the secondary, the enrichment opportunities really are course specific to see what they're interested in. But absolutely, if there's a staff member willing and support for it, we're going to try to find a way to provide it.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other hands up right now. Thank you, Ms. Peterson.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Just a closing comment, since I'm part of the trustee or president, just so you know, I'm in communication with Dr. Rice as well. And I'm on a committee as well for looking at, we've already had those conversations, and he will often call me as a small group of superintendents to get input on things of how to more along the line of the presentation and Trustee Petlicoff's comment about getting students caught up and things like that, and the number of days and things. So there's a lot of conversation. So I just wanted to mention we are aware and we're ready to adapt on those as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please. And
Next
Trustee
item.
Moses, before you read it, when you're done reading the comments for this, hand it back off to me before you go into the citizen participation.
Sure. So next item is citizen participation. citizens wishing to address the board on agenda and non-agenda items for action can complete a virtual blue card that will be posted 4 p.m. on Monday, February 8th, 2021 on the district's website. Forms received by the start of the citizen participation will be read by the board secretary. The board might not be in position to respond to non-agenda items. Therefore, speakers should not anticipate an immediate response to their comments or questions. For the benefit of all concerned, do not mention the names of students or school district employees. Please keep your comments as brief as possible. The board president reserves the right to limit times. Mr. President.
Thank you. I wanted to let the public know about some items that we're going to be implementing with the public comments. The Dearborn Public Schools believes in fully supporting transparency in government and the ability of citizens to be actively engaged in public meetings. All our public meetings include a public commentary, and the public comment form, known as the blue card, is made available through our district website before the meeting starts and remains active until public comments begin. This ensures that the public has an ample opportunity to have a voice at our meetings. All comments read and entered into the minutes of our meetings. Even those comments that are signed anonymous are usually summarized and placed into the official minutes. The Dearborn Board of Education values the input of our citizens and is committed to the principles of an open and transparent government. Although the virtual format of the Board of Education meetings may give the impression of citizen participation is similar to an online social media comment, I want to make it clear that this is not the case. The board has established very clear guidelines for accepting comments during citizen participation. Any comments submitted that contain slanderous language or false claims about any individuals will be placed in a separate folder for review. If there are legitimate complaints, our administration, or where appropriate, legal counsel will follow up with a thorough and proper investigation of the claims. This forum will not be used as a place to spread rumor or innuendo. Public comment at any meeting held by a government body is intended for all citizens in the community to openly interact with the people they elect. It is a forum for expression and ask questions and even engage in constructive criticism of policies and actions of the governing board. This board fully supports the open exchange of dialogue between the citizens and government officials without fear of persecution and firmly believes this is the core of our democracy. Trustee Moses, if you can go ahead and read the public comments, please.
Thank you, President Thorpe. The first comment we have is from Mr. Steve Jones. He said, I've been a teacher in Dearborn for over 25 years, where I was also a student at the very building I teach. Dearborn is a home to all of us, and this pandemic has caused widespread fear, uncertainty, and at times grief. This virus has no rules or reason, and it takes whomever it chooses. Many lives have been affected, and people will never be the same. That being said, I've learned to adjust and change with whatever came to my way. Virtual devices lending itself to online classes, many different portals, and most of all, patience. I didn't know what I was made of until I was challenged to push well beyond the box and support kids learning in any way I know how. We as teachers have evolved with strength like no other, but at the cost of our own families. Our days blend into night with calls and reminds just to keep our students calm. We help and show everyone involved how to move forward with glitches and struggles even at their homes. With kids, family, and pets all around us, we have created space for school and established routines. We are at a place where we just began to get comfortable and teach with confidence. Students are engaged and learning. And learning is happening daily with measurable growth at home without a mask safely behind our desks. To send us back now would be injustice to all those or to all that has been sacrificed to send us to schools with poor ventilation, crowd spaces, no proper PPE, cleaning routines. Close proximity would be a poor choice. 2 days in school would disrupt the routine, confuse what we have worked hard to establish, not to mention the 2 days that risk us and our families of viral exposure. COVID numbers are still high and changing daily. Vaccines are hard to come by and not to be fully trusted. We would return to school with students that carry the virus and risk it spreading to our own families. I ask you that you consider the fact that this pandemic is not under control and a new, more infectious strand is in our state. To send kids back right now, after being out so long, will not help but hurt the flow of the routines that are practiced daily. I ask you to reconsider the opening of schools at all and let teachers, parents deal with what is affecting us daily with love and security from our own homes. No mask, no travel, no confusing schedule, no risk, just learning safely from our homes with no virus. We have the second comment, anonymous. I'd like to just summarize it, asking, yep, yep. This is regarding teachers having FMLA coverage for absences linked to either exposure or being infected with the virus, and asking how the district will go with it. Saying a very good question. Why are 7 board members meeting virtually to plan for a return to in-person instruction? We have the third comment is also anonymous and summarizing it as well, asking that we understand that a return to normal school is in the interest of all, as we desperately miss our students and work. However, to return to school and see our students once a week will not be sufficient. And just saying that this is not a viable way to go back. Fourth comment is from Mrs. Constance Thompson, saying, why are our kids eating snacks in classrooms? We understand food must be provided. Is there no way alternative arrangements can be made? Having unmasked kids eating is problematic. Also, we were told that we cannot have them clean up after themselves. 2, what is the expectation for Zoom in the room? How can one teacher effectively manage those students in front of them along with students on the Zoom on the same day? 3, why does elementary have a different hybrid schedule or setup than secondary? 4, how are co-teachers expected to be able to service their IEP students on Zoom and in person? Because this will happen. 5, what is the protocol for students who take off their masks and refuse to put them back on? How is this dealt with a student that does this repeatedly? 6, all staff are not yet vaccinated with dose 1. Will a second async day be given to accommodate dose 2? If quarantining is required, can staff teach virtually from home without using sick days if they're able to do so? Let's say a student is in cohort A and they decide to sleep in rather than catch the bus for their in-person lessons. Will the student be allowed to join the Zoom for their classes without penalty? 9, does the district plan to continue VLP after this school year? If yes, are there plans to staff secondary VLP? If no, should secondary teachers expect to continue Zoom in the room for the next year, provided that we return to a more structured in-person setup? Fifth comment we have is from Mr. Ali Beidoun, Dearborn, saying, I have 3 children in elementary school that are not doing as well as they should be, or as well as they usually do. I sit and do homework with them and notice that I always have to reteach them everything. It was never like this. They need to go back. Our children are failing behind and are not doing well virtually. I'm so disappointed in our district. The CDC states children should be safe in school. I always bragged about Dearborn School District, but now that this keeps happening, I'm embarrassed. We just toured a private school, and I'm sad to say that maybe our final option and maybe what is best for our children so they can succeed. The private school that we toured is in Dearborn, and it has been open since the fall and has been doing great because they are taking extra precautions. Dearborn School District can do the same. Also, if you decide to open elementary schools, I'm not sure why you are only sending K to 2 back first. K to 5 will each be in their own class. They are not like middle school children where they'll have to leave class to walk to the next class. It makes no difference if the school went together, just more time wasted. Next comment we have is from Mrs. Sue Tharek, saying, in consideration of reopening schools, please consider the following. 1, numbers are extremely high in the community. According to the New York Times and studies that have been done, it is relatively safe to open elementary schools only if there is low to moderate community transmission. Dearborn has a high amount of community transmission, and the numbers have been much higher than they were in the past. To think about opening middle and high schools with numbers in our community would be extremely dangerous. 2, there is a new variant and it's much easier to transmit than the previous variant. Given that our classrooms have 29 plus students and space is extremely limited, how do you plan on social distancing our students? I have not eaten at a restaurant or gone to a hair salon since April of 2020 due to the sheer amount of people within a confined space. Being in a classroom with little ventilation and a larger number of students will cause a likely transmission. We should wait until more members in the community are vaccinated before making the decision to return to a physical school building. 3, as educators, we might not work in a healthcare setting to know the devastation of COVID patients are going through, but our family members that work as doctors and nurses tell us the stone cold truth. People are dying, and if they're not, they are getting lasting side effects weeks and months after diagnosis. How will you be protecting not only your teachers, but students and families from this? 4, a lot of teachers are prepared to take FMLA or resign if we are mandated to go back in-person learning. How will you be taking care of staffing issues? As someone who is high risk, I have already made my mind up and I will not be going back unless community, not county numbers, are below 5% and the community is taking it seriously. Many businesses continue not to wear masks and many community members are not taking precautions and hosting gatherings. 5, there are community members who are showing up to work with COVID-19 knowingly. How do you know whether or not parents who do not believe the virus is real or don't care for our well-being will not be sending their children to school sick? What actions are you prepared to take given the amount of carelessness, selfishness, and conspiracy theories that have been circulating not only in the community but throughout the nation? We have an anonymous comment mentioning also about not having enough PPEs and saying that face shields and plexiglass are not mentioned in the last board meeting. I believe that we do have an item today that mentions about purchasing plexiglass. So the comment goes to say at the end, it's hard to fathom how the well-being of teachers is so undervalued. It is one thing to do and fulfill the duties that we do because those are innate characteristics of us, of ours. We do those without the blink of an eye. What happens when many teachers decide taking FMLA? Next comment we have is from Miss Jessica Corbin, saying, I know that there is no perfect way for the kids to go back to school, but the fact that we can pay to have our children at the school for things like kids club, but it's not safe for them to be in school for a full school day just blows my mind. So many people lost their jobs, did not work, or had to make many sacrifices in the last year, but are expected to have to pay that they can work during the day and keep their kids there. Because how are people supposed to work when they are taking multiple, especially kids, to school at different times, different days for learning labs, and then not even a full day for school? How are parents supposed to work when dropping their children off at 9:40 and picking them up before 3? That's not even close to a full work day or day of work. Even the ones that are working from home will not be able to do or not be able to do so. Having the ability to pay to send my kids to the public school and they are entitled to honestly makes the district look terrible. If Dearborn is safe enough for sports and safe enough for kids club, it's safe enough for in-person learning. You aren't being fair to your district. You are once again putting sports and money first. Uh, the next comment is pretty long. It's from Jennifer, so I'll read until the 3 minutes are up. You can let me know when those 3 minutes are up. Actually, I do have a stopwatch here, so I'll start. Fear, confusion, disgust, belief, insecurity, doubt, depression, anxiety. These words all express the emotions and reactions I have felt for the past few months, and especially the past few two weeks. I'm writing this to try to explain and express my feelings about the state Dearborn Public Schools is in, and the way I feel about going to in-person learning at this time. I am a teacher. I love my profession. I love my students. I miss being in my building and interacting with my students and my colleagues. However, I also love my life and my family, and I should not have to choose between my profession and my personal health and safety, or the safety of my family members. The amount of stress I feel about going back to in-person learning and at this time is enormous. This letter is in an attempt to articulate the seriousness, apprehension I have about returning to the classroom with students at this time. To begin, I'm extremely concerned about the COVID positivity rate in Dearborn. Dearborn has been an outlier among all of Wayne County municipalities since they started publishing positive cases and deaths due to COVID. I watched the Dearborn numbers rise and the daily cases continue to be far above any of the other areas within the county. Dearborn reached over 8,000 total confirmed cases on January 18th, 2021, with Dearborn Heights at 4,073 total confirmed cases on the same date. The daily publication continues to astonish me when comparing Dearborn's numbers to any city or township nearby. I understand that the Wayne County numbers might be under 7% at this point, but Dearborn is twisting statistics just to justify a return to in-person learning. On January 31st, click on Detroit published Wayne County statistics that show Dearborn percentage rate at over 13%, far above any other city by far. I keep hearing at your meetings that there is no city by city statistics. Yes, there are, and to ignore them are truly negligent. I beg you to reconsider or to consider this when making a decision that will affect the lives of so many children, staff members, and all of their families. Numbers might be safer in other cities, but Dearborn numbers are far from acceptable or safe for returning to in-person learning at this time. Along with the frightening numbers, another concern, okay, the time, 3 minutes is up, but I'll summarize the rest saying that more about the PPE. Many of the Dearborn buildings are old and they don't have the proper ventilation. And the comment is very long and lengthy. So I would say
Thank you
I'll
for
read the,
summarizing it.
no problem. And saying, please consider these points when making your decision for thousands of students and staff members. Dearborn is not ready to return to in-person learning. Let's return with grace, certainty, and assurance only when it's truly best decision for all involved. So the total comment will be included into the record and will be read by board members. 10th comment is from Mr. Tom Indlin of Dearborn saying, what is the cost to have kids club and other child care services offered? How much money is taken by the school district from kids club and other child care services offered? 11th comment from Miss Stephanie Butler of Dearborn saying, with all the due respect, we need new leaders. What has happened to our children in the last 11 months is nothing short of tragedy that many make excuses for. Nothing has been good enough for the school board to get our children back into school. Your meetings go on and on, where the only result is this board talking themselves into circles, asking the same questions, posing the same scenarios over and over again. The world has gone back to school. We can't really entertain the idea that we are the largest school district in the entire world, can we? They have all went back. Your plan doesn't work for us parents, not the homes where both parents actually work outside the home. The back to school plan doesn't work for our household either. Your current plan has all 4 of our children going on different days and different times. We need to work. We need our children on the same schedule, meaning our sophomores and juniors on the same days, meaning our kindergarten son back with his 4th grade sister. How long can you expect parents to do this? Will you stop charging me school taxes and pay us a salary to teach our children? I'm sick of the endless meetings and talk. I can find 100 other people who would gladly sit in your seats and come up with a plan that actually works. Dearborn, the time for excuses has long passed. We need to see action. 12th comment from Miss Nicole Barakat of Dearborn saying, I understand that going back is the goal we all want. Also, not everyone will be happy with the decision that you'll make, but please explain how Zoom in the room will be beneficial to students or teachers. That sounds like a disaster. It is not fair to ask teachers to do this. Who gets left behind, the kids in class or the kids on virtual? Why have specific teachers for VLP and specific for in-person? Last comment we have is from Mrs. Suleiman of Dearborn Heights, saying, it is my understanding that when we return to hybrid instruction, there will be students eating without masks in our classroom. How is this safe for our staff and students? Other districts have figured out other alternatives, making it safer for teachers and students. That's the end of public comment.
Thank you. I'm going to respond to one of the comments, and it was in regards to sending the staff and students back to in person while we're meeting virtually. Tonight, we are going to have an action item where we are going to look at adopting a resolution to go to state to the governor's office and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. This was put together by the Michigan Association of School Boards. And I'll summarize it by saying it doesn't make sense for us to ask other people in person if we're not willing to meet in person also. So that is something that we are taking out. We don't want to be hypocritical and ask other people to do things that we're not willing to do. And you would be seeing us then possibly meeting in person beginning in March. Trustee Petlicoff?
Trustee Thorpe, can you explain that we are not legally allowed to meet in person right now? That's why we're not there. It's
Right.
not, and that's why this resolution is coming out. It's not our choice.
Right, right. Thank you very much. And that's why the resolution is put out there, is that we are asking the state to change our current directive from them that does not allow us to meet in person. In fact, it's been this way for months for other districts as well. They are allowing in-person instruction, but boards are not supposed to be meeting in person under the current rule. So I don't know, Dr. Maleko, if there was anything that you wanted to respond to from the comments before we move on.
Appreciate it. I mean, there was a lot that was in there. The only thing I can say is, you know, a lot of the information we've tried to put out there, because there was a lot of different questions in there. And we will continue to do that both through the buildings, and you know, we have a plan in place. And if there's any individuals and if we have their contact information that need things, I always have my team who is receiving these comments as well, and they'll reach out with those individuals, and we're happy to you know, discuss it. Anything regarding FMLA just in general is basically based on federal law, so we are required to follow it, and employees can, you know, call into HR or talk to their union to get that information and guidance and advice.
There was also comments about PPE. The district has been stockpiling PPE since the end of last school year.
Thank you, President Thorpe. And we have more that we're putting. In fact, our whole warehouse is stockpiled right now with PPE.
Trustee Petlicoff?
And I'd also like to clarify for one of the parents with the soft start that is going to roll out, that has her students going at different times and different days. That is just for that first few weeks to get everybody back into the buildings and get everybody acclimated again. Not a perfect plan. The hybrid program's not perfect. The virtual is not perfect. Nothing really is going to be ideal or back to the way school was. And I would like to clarify that not every district has gone back. And that has been something I hear over and over again. And there's a lot of districts that still haven't returned fully to a normal school year in our surrounding communities. So I would just remind people that, you know, it's easy to say that you know what's going on in every other community, but the true course of what is occurring across the state is something quite different than what their perception is. So it's not everybody has not gone back yet. And some are just starting similarly as we are.
Thank you. Next item, please.
I have a question before we move on to Dr. Maleko about being flexible, and this is responding to one of the comments to our staff, especially after they take the second dose. Are they expected to take personal day or a sick day if they're not feeling well, or are we giving them async days on those days after they take the second dose?
Yeah, the second dose, we're going to probably try to work out another async, depending on when that is and the circumstances, for sure. And in fact, I worked with the union on that, and I sent out communication. Not only that, but we've told our principals we made it a priority. So before we even got these big 2 days of, you know, this week coming up, we were making a priority to be flexible with staff that said, hey, I got a vaccine dose at 10 a.m. on this day. Guess what? We'll cover you. Go ahead and do it. We'll do async. We want you to get the vaccine. They don't have to put anything in the system. Principals just work it out with them. And I put that directive out long ago, and everyone wants to help because we know that's, you know, important. So I appreciate you asking that. The other thing I want to mention PPE is we have a ton of face shields. actually in stock, and the visors and those other things. So I don't want to get into all the, but I'm just telling you, my team is telling me we have a lot of PPE and we're going to continue to stockpile. A lot of it is continuing to going to be distributed out to the building. So I'm not concerned with PPE. And again, we're going to continue to stockpile it. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Next item is action items.
Real quick, Trustee Moses, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Trustee Watts, you had your hand up.
Just going back to the PPE, if staff or teachers are requesting PPE, how do they go about to get those?
They can go through their building principal or their engineer, whatever they need. You know, I'll just use an example. For example, it's a sanitizer. Well, that's the building engineer, and it's distributed, and everyone has the ability to get it. You remember at the board meeting, we had Mr. Shelby that presented and Mr. Andrews a few times. And so they would then distribute to engineers. You can go to the principals, you know, whatever they may need. That's just one example.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.